The following is a production of Stevenson Media. Want to tip the host? Just scan the QR code or click the link in the description. Get a free Houston Sports State of the Union podcast t-shirt with a donation of $50 or more.
This is the Houston Sports State of the Union podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, the president of Houston Sports Nation, Nick Stevenson.
My goodness, thank you so much, and please be seated, my fellow Houstonians. Welcome to this Houston Sports State of the Union address for the week of July 6th. I am the self-appointed president of Houston Sports Nation, Nick Stevenson. As always, there are a million different things you could be doing this afternoon. If you chose to spend a little bit of time with me, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Houston, all three of our teams are in win now mode. The Rockets have a brand new superstar. The Texans have put all their chips into the center of the table, and the Astros are inevitable. We will talk about all things Houston sports today. The Kevin Durant trade by the Houston Rockets. Our O-line has been completely revamped and the defense beefed up by the Texans. And your Houston Astros have won 8 out of their last 10, and they are coming off of a sweep of the Los Angeles Dodgers. It's going to be so fun to talk about that. If you join me live, I'd love to hear from you in the chat. If you're watching this or listening to this after the fact, I appreciate you very much. Let me remind you of the ways really quick that you can support the show. One, you're doing right now. You listen, you watch. Hopefully you're sharing with your friends, your family. Remind them to like, follow, subscribe, wherever they get their podcast fix. I will leave links in the description, my link tree for all of the places, the social medias, everywhere you can follow, like, subscribe to the Houston Sports State of the Union podcast. Also, you will find in the description, once this live is over, there will be a link to my tip jar. If you'd like to leave me a little something, that's always going to go right back into this show to continue bringing you great content. And then I'll also have affiliate links, Amazon links for Houston Sports fan gear. If you guys want to purchase some fan gear that you want to wear to the game when you're going this season, why not purchase it from my Amazon link? Give me a little bit of change from that. And those are all the ways you can support the show. But once again, the number one way is the way you're doing right now. You're watching, you're listening. Hopefully you're sharing with your friends and family. Let's get into it immediately with the state of the Houston Astros. As I mentioned in the intro. Maybe I should call it the Astro from now on. I mentioned in the intro. Houston Astros have won 8 out of their last 10. They are coming off a very impressive 3 weeks where they swept the Philadelphia Phillies. They won the Cubs series and they won the Rockies series. Followed that up by sweeping the Los Angeles Dodgers on the road in Los Angeles at Dodger Stadium. Listen, man, it's been said one too many times. I said it in the intro. The Astros are inevitable. If you guys have been following me, listening to this show, the take I had on the Astros early before the season began is ice cold right about now. I said that the Houston Astros would not be dominant, that they would still be good, but if you were used to them being dominant, this was going to be a change for you, and it might test your fanhood a little bit. And in a lot of ways, and in some ways, I was correct about that. And I'll say, I think the city was a little bit lukewarm on this team early in the season. Number one, they didn't get off to a great start. But also number two, so many of the beloved and familiar faces that we've come to know on this Astros team are no longer here. Obviously, Kyle Tucker, Alex Bregman this season, but even past players, such as Justin Verlander, no longer here. Carlos Correa, no longer here. Even going back to George Springer, no longer here. So those are all players that this city had a love affair with at one point. And there's a lot of new faces on this Astros team. And so I think that's why, first of all, especially the casuals were probably not going to be as diehard supporters of this team early on. But now that they are 7 games in front of their division, they have the 3rd best record in all of baseball. They're one of only 3 teams so far to have won 50 games. They have 3 players in the All-Star game, and it's probably 3 players none of us expected at the beginning of this season. I was wrong. They're still awesome, and shame on me for thinking that they wouldn't be. But this, I think, if you had any doubts before this last 3 weeks, sweeping the Phillies, beating the Cubs, even though they took one really bad loss in the middle of that series, doing what you're supposed to do and winning the Rockies series, and then sweeping the Dodgers in Los Angeles. If there was any doubt on whether or not this Astros team is legitimate, I think all of that doubt can now be squashed. I think this Dodgers series was more important for the Astros than it was for the Dodgers, and I'm not saying that to give the Dodgers an excuse for why they had such a poor showing. I mean, the Astros beat their ass. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Well, there are buts. It's the buts that got beat by the Astros. Listen, I just know that even though the Astros have been winning, there's probably been that question mark in the back of our mind. Like, is this real? Is this sustainable? We've been winning despite injuries on pitching, despite some offensive players being injured, or some who are playing not living up to their expectation. Christian Walker. They haven't had Yordan Alvarez all season. Jose Altuve was struggling early in the season, but yet they're still winning ball games. And you go down the list on this roster, and there's just so many players contributing. I got to join my buddy Rob Fontenot last night on the Astros baseball podcast, and I told him straight up, this guy Short, I can't even remember his first name at the moment. I didn't even know who he was until the Dodgers series. Full transparency, I've told you guys 1,000 times, like, I don't sit here and watch every pitch of every Astros game for 162 games. The season's just too long. I don't do that. I watch as many games as I can, and 162 games from beginning to end, I'll probably watch 25 to 50 games all the way through, and that's stretching it. Most of the time, I'm going to watch parts of it. I'm going to watch last 3 innings, or I'm going to catch YouTube highlights. The big games, like the Dodgers, I'll watch the Dodgers series. When they're playing the Yankees, when they're playing our rivals in the Rangers, I'll watch a few of those games all the way through. But watching every pitch of every single game, I'm sorry, too many other things to do, and it's just too long of a season. But I stay invested in my Houston Astros. So some of these players who have been contributing, I didn't even know who they were. I mean, Jake Myers is playing out of his mind. But in this series, without a doubt, the most refreshing thing that I saw against the Dodgers is the fact that Jose Altuve was on a burner. I believe he was 6 of 11 in the series, had 3 home runs. He was killing it. Absolutely killing it. And every time he stepped to the plate, obviously Los Angeles is going to do what they do. They're going to boo him. They're going to start chanting that he's a cheater. And he shut them up every single time. And I loved it. Absolutely loved it. If you're an Astros fan, you loved it as well. Listen, I mentioned, the Astros have some all-stars on their team. Jeremy Pena, Hunter Brown, Josh Hader, all well-deserved. Hunter Brown could win the Cy Young this year. Josh Hader has been absolute nails, hasn't blown a save all season. And then JP has had a breakout year. Obviously, one of the reasons he decided to switch his representation to Scott Boras, who is known for getting his clients paid. So JP is going to try to strike while the iron is hot, but that's a conversation for the offseason. Right now, 3 All-Stars for the Astros. You could argue that if some of their other players hadn't started off slowly, they'd probably be All-Stars as well. Cam Smith being one of them, who is looking like the Astros are going to have another Rookie of the Year. I think Jose Altuve is playing really well right now. And then Christian Walker, I tell you what, the Dodgers have to be asking themselves, why did we not sign Christian Walker? Because he absolutely balls out in Los Angeles. If it wasn't for Jose Altuve, he would have been the player of the series. I think he's hit home runs in 6 consecutive games now, 6 or 7 consecutive games at Dodger Stadium. He outplayed Ohtani, who went 1 for 11, only had Yeah, he had the one hit, no home runs. He had a couple of strikeouts and a couple of walks. The Astros were fantastic against him. And if you'd have told me Lance McCullers would go 6 innings, only give up 1 run against the Dodgers, look, man, like I said, shame on me. I will no longer question whether the Astros will be dominant because, once again, they are inevitable. The Houston Astros continue, and a lot of credit has to go to Dana Brown. A lot of credit has to go to, I'm doing the name thing again, to their manager, and his name will pop up in my head in a minute. I was just on the show. Joe Espada. Thank you. Joe Espada, I was just on the show talking about him yesterday, about how we have to give him credit. You know, there was a moment in game 2 where he left Framber Valdez in the game to give him an opportunity to strike out or to get out Shohei Ohtani. And those are the type of moves that I think show that he's not a slave to the statistics. He's not a slave to the analytics. He will sometimes go in there and use that gut feel. He'll look his player in the eye. He'll talk to him. And he'll do what he has to do to instill confidence into that player. Framber's been amazing. I think he's won 11 straight games. He has a sub-3 ERA. You take him out in that moment, maybe you put a dent in his confidence. You know, so, and I said this on Rob's show last night. I don't think, I hate to open up old wounds, which is a quote that we can quote from Oral Hershiser. I don't think that AJ Hinch would make that type of move. AJ Hinch was a slave to the analytics, sometimes too much. And look, when it works, in both scenarios, whether you're using the analytics or you're going with your gut, when it works, you're a hero, you're a genius. When it doesn't work, you're the scapegoat. And that's just how it goes, in the business of sports. I liked the move. I hope that that's the type of confidence he's going to keep instilling in all of his players, especially in the playoffs, because it looks like the Astros will be going to the playoffs. They're starting to stretch and get away from the rest of the competition in their division. My only concern is hopefully they are not peaking too soon. But I'm not going to worry about that because, like I said, every time I count, I've never counted the Astros out. But I've thought to myself, there's no way they can continue to be this dominant. Well, I was wrong, and they proved it to me this week. Just fantastic 3 weeks, capped off with the July 4th celebration of sweeping the Dodgers in Los Angeles. It can't get any better than that. And Los Angeles is mad, y'all. Big mad. I brought up Oral Hershiser. He talked about the fact that he didn't want to open up an old wound, but it seemed like the Astros knew what was coming. Listen, man, Dodgers fans are so full of excuses. And apparently it goes beyond their fans into their television announcers. Even Dave Roberts in his post-series press conference seemed to insinuate that, he used the quote, they were all over the stuff we were throwing. Listen, man, I tweeted this out and I posted on socials. There are 3 things you can count on from Los Angeles Dodgers fans. They're going to show up to the game late. They're going to leave early, and they're going to make excuses for when they lose, especially to the Houston Astros. It was a historic game 1, 18-1. That is the biggest loss suffered by the Dodgers since they've been in Los Angeles. And the second biggest loss they've faced ever, even going back to their Brooklyn Dodgers days. So, listen, man, the Astros are legit. They are in win now mode. They should be expected to be one of the teams that can continue this dominance and win a World Series. All right, guys, let's move on to our Houston Rockets. I'm going to have to change my Houston Rockets graphic. It had Jalen Green. It had Dylan Brooks in it. Neither of them any longer members of the Houston Rockets. The Rockets completed a 7-team deal. It's very convoluted. There's a lot of unnecessary parts to it. Let me give you the important stuff. The Rockets give up Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, and 5 second-round picks. In return, they received Kevin Durant and Clint Capella in a sign-and-trade from the Hawks. They also traded Cam Whitmore in a separate trade. It was a 3-team trade with the Washington Wizards and the New Orleans Pelicans. In that trade, they received 2 second-round picks and the draft rights to New Zealand native Mojave King, who has spent the majority of his career in the G League. Look, this is a huge shakeup for this Rockets team. When the season ended, I told you how I felt about it. I wanted them to run it back. And based on everything that Rafael Stone and even Ime Udoka was saying, I thought they wanted to run it back. Stone was quoted as saying that continuity was going to be the preference unless something just blew them away. And there's no way you can say, I don't believe that this Kevin Durant return, like Kevin Durant and Clint Capella, I don't think that blew them away as far as the return. I think what blew them away is how little they had to give up to get Kevin Durant. Say what you will, Dillon Brooks was very vital to the last 2 seasons for the Houston Rockets. He changed the culture. He was very important in building their toughness. I wrote an article in the Dream Shake thanking him and giving him his credit and his flowers for what he did for this organization. But he wasn't a part of the future plan. And then Jalen Green, you can argue he was definitely a part of the future plan. I mean, he was the very first draft pick at the beginning of this rebuild. But when you're drafting in the top 3, 4, 5, 6, 3, 4, 5, 6 years in a row, eventually there's going to be some players that you're not going to be able to keep them all. And apparently the Rockets, Rafael Stone, Ime Udoka, and even Tillman Fertitta, after calculating and measuring, the pros and the cons, they felt like giving up Jalen Green in return for Kevin Durant at the age of 37, although still a very productive player at 37. They felt like it was worth it. And I can't really argue with that. I wasn't thrilled about the trade initially until I realized you get Kevin Durant, who is still shoots 50% from the field, 40% from 3, 90% from the free throw line. You gave up Dillon Brooks. That's tough. He was a culture setter, a trend setter, and a very good defensive player. And then you give up Jalen Green. But look at everything you got to keep. You keep Şengün. You keep Amen Thompson. You kept Reed Shepherd. You kept Jabari Smith Jr. You thought you were keeping Cam Whitmore, who, you would think Phoenix would want Cam Whitmore in a trade for Kevin Durant. But you didn't have to give up Cam to get Durant. You end up giving him up later on your own terms, which we'll get into in a minute. And then you get to re-sign, all of your core role players. Fred VanVleet takes a pay cut to stay with the team. You get to keep Jeff Green. You get to keep Jayshawn Tate. You get to keep, who's the other one? Oh, Holiday. Aaron Holiday. You keep all of those guys. You bring back Steven Adams. So essentially, you traded Jalen Green for Kevin Durant. Because after this trade was taking place, the Rockets went ahead and signed Dorian Finney-Smith, who was the perfect replacement for Dillon Brooks. He might be better than Dillon Brooks. He's definitely taller. He's just as fierce defensively. Is he going to shoot? I mean, he shot the ball from 3 better than Dillon last year. He shot 41% between the Lakers and the Brooklyn Nets last season. He's the perfect replacement. So essentially, you traded Jalen Green for Kevin Durant. It's risky, no doubt about it. The question is it going to be worth it? What does success look like? Look, what's done is done. Jalen's gone. I wish he could have stayed, but he's gone. Kevin Durant is here. It's official. The Rockets have already put it on their website. I don't think they've scheduled a press conference or anything yet, but the deal's done. So what does success look like for the Rockets now? I say if they don't get to at least the Western Conference Finals in the next 2 seasons, and then Jalen Green becomes a star, then the Rockets lose this trade. Because if you're going to lose in the first, second round, you could have done that with Jalen Green on the team, and he'd be younger, a little bit more affordable, and there's a chance you continue to develop him where eventually down the line, you have him on the roster and you do cross that threshold. But with Jalen Green on this team, I don't think anybody would be expecting that the Rockets get to the Western Conference Finals. You would have the feeling that they should, but you wouldn't be expecting them to. Now that Kevin Durant is on this team, all the expectation has changed. Being the second seed, getting to the playoffs, being scrappy in the first round against the Warriors, that was cute when you had Jalen Green. Now you've got Kevin Durant, who's 37 years old, one of the best scorers in NBA history, if not the best, and still productive at his age, and you kept your entire core together. You've got Ime Udoka, who you've given a extension to on his contract. You've got an all-star in Alperen Şengün. Fred VanVleet, the leadership that he brought, is still there. The expectations changed. The Rockets have to at least get to the Western Conference Finals. If not this season, definitely next season. But if they don't get there this season, that's probably a disappointment. But they have to at least get to the Western Conference Finals. Obviously, if they do that, or if they get to the finals, or if they win the chip, either of those three things happen, I think they still win this trade regardless of what Jalen Green does. If they get to the Western Conference Finals, obviously, and it's against Jalen Green and the Phoenix Suns, and then they lose, and then the Suns go on to the finals, obviously you lost. But I don't think that's going to happen. But I think regardless of what Jalen does, if you get to the Western Conference Finals at least once in the next 2 years, obviously if you get to the finals and win them, then you won the trade no matter what Jalen does, even if he becomes an all-star. You win a chip, then you did what you aimed to do when you brought in Kevin Durant. I wish they could have worked it out with Cam, but apparently he was not a culture fit. I'm not really mad at it. Listen, if I was Cam Whitmore, I already lost millions of dollars because I thought I was going to be a top 5 pick. I ended up falling all the way to 20. And then when I get to a team, it's stacked full of young players, and I have a hard time finding any playing time. So for the last 2 years, I've either been in the G League or riding the bench in the NBA. If I'm him, I'm sure he believes he's one of the best players from his draft class, one of the best young players in the NBA. If I was him, I would want to prove that on the court. I wouldn't want to have to prove it to my coach in practice. I would want to be able to get on the court and show what I can do. And all the reporting is that the Rockets could have gotten different deals for him. They chose to send him to a situation that was good for him. He's going to the Wizards, where he's from the DC, Maryland area. So good for him. He might have a chance to put up some really good stats on a horrible basketball team. I say horrible basketball team because it's the Wizards, and I assume that. I know they got CJ McCollum now. They got some young players. They got a lot of young players. He's basically, I don't know that his situation as far as playing time has changed a whole lot with the Wizards. Is he going to play above McCollum? No. Like, I still don't know if he's not going to be a starter for the Wizards, but maybe he'll get more time off the bench. Who knows? I hope it works out for him. I'm sad to see him go because I thought he could have been a really good offensive punch for the Rockets coming off the bench, especially now that you don't have the scoring of Jalen Green, who was your leading scorer. And we know Kevin Durant is not going to play 82 games. He's going to have some days where he rests. So who's going to be the offensive punch when Kevin Durant is not there? I don't know if the Rockets can answer that question right now. But by letting Cam go, they do still have some financial flexibility. Maybe there's another deal in the works. But as of now, regardless, even if it stays as it is right now, the Houston Rockets have expectations that they need to be one of the best teams in the Western Conference. And the Western Conference is loaded. So that is going to be very difficult. But listen, I say Western Conference championship in the next 2 years or bust. And for now, I will leave it at that. Let's move on really quick to the state of our Houston Texans. I'm not quite ready to change that Houston Texans graphic. I'm going to leave Tank Dell in there. Obviously, I'm hoping that he's going to be able to return. So I'm going to leave him in there for now. But look, we talk about how all Houston teams are in win now mode. I don't think anybody can say that more than the Houston Texans. And this is why I say that. In the last 3 seasons, no team in Houston has done more maneuvering to position themselves to be champions than the Houston Texans. I'm not saying they've done all the right maneuvers, but they have mixed and moved more things in the last 3 years, starting with hiring DeMeco Ryans, starting with drafting CJ Stroud, then immediately trading up to get Will Anderson Jr. The next season, adding Danielle Hunter in free agency, adding Joe Mixon in free agency. This year, adding Nick Chubb in free agency, trading for CJ Gardner-Johnson, wiping out the entire offensive line, firing the offensive coordinator, bringing in a new play caller, new offensive line coach, or promoting from within for a new offensive line coach. They have moved and shuffled everything they possibly can. So they also have expectation. Unlike the Rockets, who I believe still have chips to use, the Texans don't have any chips left. They've thrown them all into the center of the table. I mean, they do have their own draft picks, but you don't want to start trading away draft picks now. You're getting ready to have to pay CJ. You got to pay Will Anderson. You're probably going to want to pay Kamari Lassiter, possibly. I mean, you're going to have to start drafting really well because you're going to be spending some money on this young core that you've assembled. So you don't want to get rid of your draft picks. So I say they've put all their chips in the table, which is why this season for me is AFC Championship game or bust. It just is. I'm not saying that I believe that they're going to be there. I think they should have an opportunity to be there. I'm not predicting they're going to win the Super Bowl. They got to show me. I think they are Super Bowl caliber everywhere, except the unknown, which is the offensive line. Look, CJ Stroud, under this new offense, apparently he's going to have all the reins taken off. He's going to be able to make changes at the line. And everybody's really excited about that. And I'm excited about Nick Caley too, although he's never been a play caller. He's never been an offensive coordinator. But I'm still excited to see what he brings to the table. From everything I've read, he wants to have a game plan offense, which might kind of scare you if you remember the Bill O'Brien days, because that's what he wanted to do too, was game plan offense. But they never, ever seemed to have the right game plan on game day for the most part. But look, fans are anticipating a big jump from CJ Stroud, but I say that's fine. CJ Stroud will carry this team this team will go as far as CJ Stroud carries them. I don't disagree with that. But CJ Stroud will go as far as this offensive line will allow him to. And with the entire thing being revamped, you no longer have Laramie Tunsil. You've got Cam Robinson, who's an okay player. You still have Titus Howard, who's been up and down for you as a Houston Texan. Jake Andrews appears to be the center of the future, or at least the center of this season, which came out of left field. But Jake Andrews, has some connection with Cole Popovich, who is the offensive line coach. And then you've got Laken Tomlinson, who's a solid vet. And then you got Jake Fisher, who has never started an entire season before at right tackle. So there's a lot of question marks there. I think we all agree the defense got better. Adding CJ Gardner-Johnson, that filled a hole that was left by, I love Ward, but listen, man, you had some problems getting beat downfield. And I don't think you're going to have that problem necessarily with CJ Gardner-Johnson. I think CJ Gardner-Johnson is probably going to move up into the box a lot and make a lot of plays there too. Add that with your nickel corner of Jalen Petrie, who hopefully will be healthy and playing well. This defense is going to be beast. You've got good receivers in Nico Collins and Christian Kirk. Then you went out and drafted Jaden Higgins, who looks like a baller. Jalen Knoll, who is pure speed. So everywhere on this team, you think to yourself, hey man, I mean, you got Joe Mixon, Nick Chubb, Dalton Schultz returning. Offensively, you should be great if the offensive line can protect CJ Stroud and open up some run lanes for these running backs. Listen, man, it's the only question mark on this team. I think everybody else believes every other part of this team is Super Bowl caliber. If the offensive line can be even mediocre, I don't want to say mediocre, middle of the pack to slightly better than middle of the pack, I think the Texans have an opportunity to do that thing they've never done before, and that's win 2 playoff games. Hopefully, D'Amico and Nick Caserio have this offensive line thing figured out. Because if they haven't, after 3 years together, they're going to have to start answering some questions about it. But I am looking very much forward to the season. I'm looking very much forward to covering the team with my buddy Ruben of the Twin Toros podcast on ESPN Houston's YouTube channel. And I might have an opportunity to cover the Houston Texans for another well-known Houston sports content creator. Don't want to get ahead of myself. I'm going to have a meeting with them today. But if anything exciting happens, I'll let you guys know about that. But that is the state of the union in Houston right now. It's a great time to be a Houston sports fan. How can you not be excited about all three of our major sports teams? I don't know how you can't. So it's why I love doing this show. I love talking to you guys about it. Once again, let me remind you of the ways you can support the show. One, you've been doing this entire time. You listen, you watch, share with your friends and family. Remind them to follow, like, subscribe. Wherever they get their podcast fix, you can find the Houston Sports State of the Union podcast on YouTube. You can find it on Facebook. I will put all of the links in the description once this live is done. I also have all the audio put on pretty much anywhere you listen to podcast audio: Apple, Amazon, YouTube Music. It's everywhere. So if you want to consume the show, there's no excuse not to be able to. But like I said, I'll leave the links in the description when this live is done. And then I will also have a link to my tip jar in the description, and I will have the links to some Houston sports fan gear and all of the equipment I use to bring you this fine show. They're Amazon affiliate links. If you purchase anything from those links, then I'll get a little bit of change from that. And that is how you can support this show financially. But the number one way, like I said, is the way you've been doing it, the way I hope you continue to do it, and that's to listen. This is my last live show. I'm going to start pre-recording these shows and putting them out every Friday. I'm looking forward to that. Hopefully that'll make it a little bit easier for you guys to lock down when the show is coming on, and I'll get a little bit more listenership from that because it'll be more consistent. That is the hope. But in the meantime, I will see you guys next Friday. But you know what I want you to do till then. Stay 10 toes down for the H. I love you and good night.
This has been the Houston Sports State of the Union podcast, hosted by Nick Stevenson. Tune in next week for more news and analysis of your favorite Houston teams. Please follow the show on Facebook, Instagram, the app formerly known as Twitter, if that's even really still a thing. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content.